Nobody likes critics. But sometimes we need that voice that challenges our preconceived notions. It can strengthen our arguments. It can change our mind. It can introduce us to new perspectives. To operate without critique is to fall prey to the ego. It's to worship idols and false gods. It's to worship ourselves. It ultimately harms others. So here today in this story of King Ahab and King Jehoshaphat and the prophet Micaiah, what happens when we don't want to listen to our critics? 1 Kings 22, 1 through 18. For 3 years, Aram and Israel continued without war, but in the third year, King Jehoshaphat of Judah came down to the king of Israel. The king of Israel said to his servants, "Do you know that Ramoth-Gilead belongs to us? Yet we are doing nothing to take it out of the hand of the king of Aram." He said to Jehoshaphat, "Will you go with me to battle at Ramoth-Gilead?" Jehoshaphat replied to the king of Israel, "I am as you are. My people are your people. My horses are your horses." But Jehoshaphat also said to the king of Israel, "Inquire first for the word of the Lord." Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 of them, and said to them, "Shall I go to battle against Ramoth-Gilead, or shall I refrain?" They said, "Go up, for the Lord will give it into the hand of the king." But Jehoshaphat said, "Is there no other prophet of the Lord here to whom we may inquire?" The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, "There is still one other by whom we may inquire of the Lord, Micaiah, son of Imlah. But I hate him, for he never prophesies anything favorable about me, but only disaster." Jehoshaphat said, "Let the king not say such a thing." Then the king of Israel summoned an officer and said, "Bring quickly Micaiah, son of Imlah." The messenger who had gone to summon Micaiah said to him, "Look, the words of the prophets with one accord are favorable to the king. Let your word be like the word of one of them and speak favorably." But Micaiah said, "As the Lord lives, whatever the Lord says to me, that I will speak." When he had come to the king said to him, "Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth-Gilead to battle, or shall we refrain?" He answered him, "Go up and triumph. The Lord will give it into the hand of the king." But the king said to him, "How many times must I make you swear to tell me nothing but the truth in the name of the Lord?" Then Micaiah said, "I saw all Israel scattered on the mountains like sheep that have no shepherd. And the Lord said, 'These have no master. Let each one go home in peace.'" The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, "Did I not tell you that he would not prophesy anything favorable about me, but only disaster?" If you read the history of Israel and Judah's kings, King Jehoshaphat is remembered as one of the good kings of Judah. He inquired of the Lord. He did what the Lord asks of him. King Ahab of Israel is remembered as one of the worst kings in all of Israel's history. The difference is seen here. Ahab thinks once Jehoshaphat's on board, let's go fight Aram and take back Ramoth-Gilead. Jehoshaphat says, "Hey, that's not how we do this. We need to see if this is something the Lord wants. Bring the prophets and let them tell us." 400 prophets are brought. They all say the same thing. Yes, go take Ramoth-Gilead, but something tips off Jehoshaphat that Ahab has surrounded himself with yes men. So he inquires again, "Is there not any other prophet?" And you heard it, there is one more, Micaiah. Ahab hates him. He never says anything nice about Ahab, so Ahab doesn't usually bring him in for counsel. Micaiah shows up. He kind of mockingly goes along with the other prophets, but then when pressed, he says, "If you go into this battle, you're going to lose." Ahab refuses to take that prophet's advice because it's not what he wants to hear. They go into the battle, spoiler alert, they lose, and not only do they lose, King Ahab of Israel is killed and dies. The story is a warning. Are you a person who surrounds yourself with yes men, with yes women? Do you live in an echo chamber where every idea you have is simply more and more reinforced? Where are the dissident voices in your life where you have to hear a different political view, a social view, something that challenges your religious assumptions? Who is it in your life who checks your ego, who checks your self-assuredness? We see in this story that the more siloed we live our lives, reinforcing our current beliefs, the more likely we are to blaze ahead against the will of God and into disaster for others and ultimately for ourselves. And it is so easy in our current climate to live in a polarized and angry world where we simply continue to fuel the flames of our own rage. But why might we learn something from Ahab and Jehoshaphat and Micaiah? Might we have the wisdom, might we have the humility to listen to critique, to adjust our positions, to evaluate our motives, and seek the good instead of just seeking the praise. If you want to learn more about these stories of the kings of Israel and Judah and what they can teach us about navigating the current moment we live in, I'd love to have you be part of the Adult Vacation Bible School that I am leading at Second Presbyterian Church here in Roanoke, June 20th through the 23rd. It's called Follow the Leader. You can register at spres.org, or it will be live streamed on the Second Presbyterian YouTube channel. I hope you'll be there as we try to learn more from these kings of Israel and Judah and God's work in them or God's work despite them.